So I will kick this off. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm delighted to welcome you to the launch of the Working Well webinar series. I'm Erin Flynn, and I'm the director of the outreach program at the Oregon Institute of Occupational Health Sciences at OHSU. Working Well is a new bi-monthly webinar series that highlights unique challenges impacting workers in Oregon and beyond. The series is designed to help safety professionals, policymakers, and experts in occupational health stay informed of the latest trends in the world of work. Working Well addresses worker safety and health topics from a total worker health perspective, which emphasizes hazard-free work for all and prioritizes designing work for optimal well-being. Today, our focus is extreme heat and poor air quality and how these increasingly common working conditions create health and safety issues for workers. But before we get started today, and we have some really terrific speakers for you, I want to tell you a little bit about our institute. We are an occupational health sciences research institute at OHSU, and we're also a NIOSH Center of Excellence for Total Worker Health. Institute researchers study a broad range of complex issues facing workers today using the tools of basic, clinical, and applied research. We have 4 primary research themes at the Institute, including environmental exposure to harmful materials, sleep and circadian health, safety at work, and supportive workplace practices. Our job on the outreach team is to translate this research into practice through a variety of communication vehicles, the development of tools and trainings, and educational programming. We invite you to visit our website to learn more about the Institute research, as well as access free resources, tools, trainings, and educational programs designed to promote workplace health, safety, and well-being. Before we begin today, I want to just note a few housekeeping items. Please use the Q&A feature to post questions if you have them, and we'll try to get to all of your questions, time permitting. If you wish to chat with other participants or share resources with one another, please use the chat feature. Participants will be muted during the seminar. And on the lower left of your screen, you'll find a closed caption button. Please use as needed. There are many language options available. We also want to remind that for those of you who wish to receive SHRM credit for today's session, you can do so, and we will share the code at the end. And finally, just so you know, we are recording today's session. So thanks again for being here for the launch of our new webinar series, Working Well. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Amy Spring, who will set up today's talk and introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Erin, and thank you all for being here today. A special thanks in advance to our speakers for spending this time with us today. So today we'll focus on the intersections between heat and poor air quality, what we know from the science of these dual exposures, and how our regulatory agencies are crafting safety guidance, and how workers are being informed about how to deal with these climate conditions. We know quite a bit about extreme heat exposure, and we also know quite a bit about exposure to poor air quality. But today's focus is on the intersection of both of these and the ways that when you protect with one exposure, at times may work against the protections of the other exposure. And then how do we deal with that? We'll hear about the research and the regulations and the ways that community organizations are supporting workers. I'll note that we know that we're past the hottest days of summer, and thankfully we're past the wildfire season, which is often a cause of poor air quality. And what we're hoping to do today is to really think in advance of next season, because there will be another season where we have 90-degree plus temperatures, and unfortunately, we will experience high air pollution days as well. So what I will do now is I'm going to turn to our speakers. And I'd like to introduce all of our speakers at one time as a means to kind of save a little transition time in between them. So we'll begin with Dr. Richie Evoy, who is the lead wildland firefighter, sorry, researcher at the CDC at NIOSH in the Western States. And he's an alum of Oregon State University. We will hear from Randy Westmoreland, who is an industrial hygienist from Oregon OSHA, and Dr. Westmoreland works with businesses on health and safety issues. We will then turn our attention to Kate Sussman from the Northwest Workers Justice Project and Pablo Palmendez, who works for the University of Washington. These folks are working for organizations that are working directly with workers and doing worker-centered education and outreach, and have resources that they use in their work and will share with this broader audience for their use. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to invite Dr. Evoy to join us.
Hello, everyone. I just want to make sure, can everyone see my page okay before I move forward?
Yes.
We can see. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Well, hello, everyone. My name is Lieutenant Richard Evoy, and I'm an epidemiologist at the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, which is a part of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I work at NIOSH's Western States Division in Denver, Colorado. I am the lead researcher for Wildland Firefighter Safety and Health program at Western States Division. Today, I'm going to be giving a brief overview of heat, air pollution, and outdoor workers. While I won't be presenting any of my wildland firefighter work today, I have worked on multiple documents related to outdoor workers, heat, and air pollution during my time at NIOSH. And also, one of my dissertation projects also evaluated the impact of heat and the presence of wildfire smoke on outdoor workers in the state of Oregon. So I thought it'd be good to just quickly go over what we know when it comes to extreme heat. So for occupational heat stress from exertion, hot environments, and clothing or personal protective equipment, we know this places workers at risk for heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke, heat exhaustion, or other heat-related illnesses. Research has consistently shown that outdoor workers are at a higher risk for heat-related illnesses when compared to other groups of workers. Symptoms of heat-related illnesses include high body temperatures, hot, red, dry, or damp skin, fast and strong pulses, headaches, dizziness, nausea, confusion, and also losing consciousness. Some factors that might increase an outdoor worker's chance of developing a heat-related illness include high levels of humidity, lack of acclimatization, pregnancy, radiant heat sources, limited air movement, fever, dehydration, prescription drug use, heart disease, poor circulation, and of course, direct UV exposure to the sun. Now, when it comes to the research, we have shown that increases in temperature are associated with increases in all-cause emergency hospital admission rates for the public. It's also, research has shown that it's been linked to mortality increasing during heat waves when compared to non-heat wave days. At this higher level, research has consistently shown that extreme heat can impact an entire community and not just our outdoor workers. When we're talking about air pollution today, I'm going to specifically talk about what we know regarding particulate matter measuring 1.5 micrometers in diameter or less. PM 2.5 is 30 times thinner than a human hair, and because it is so small, it can be inhaled directly into lung tissue, and it accounts for most health effects due to air pollution in the United States. It is important to point out that air pollution is a mixture of hazardous substances from both human and natural sources. So vehicle emissions, fuel oils, and natural gas to heat your homes, byproducts of manufacturing power generation, particularly coal fuel power plants, and fumes from chemical production are the primary sources of human-made air pollution. Natural releases of hazardous substances in the air include smoke from wildfires, which are often caused by people, ash and gases from volcanic eruptions, gases like methane, which are emitted from decomposing organic matters in soil. So there's a variety of different sources that contribute to air pollution. So when it comes to the symptoms of high PM 2.5 exposure, it includes eye irritation, wheezing or difficulty breathing, irritation and inflammation of the respiratory tract along the lines of coughing, shortness of breath, aggravation of existing asthma, and it can also impact heart and lung conditions. For individuals, there's consistent evidence of causal relationship between exposure to particulate matter and various health effects, such as respiratory, cardiovascular, nervous system effects, cancer, and mortality. These have all been systematically characterized. Air pollution can also negatively impact disadvantaged groups, such as those with asthma or other respiratory diseases, people with cardiovascular disease, older adults, people of lower socioeconomic status, and of course, outdoor workers. Similar to extreme heat, high levels of air pollution have been positively associated with increased cardiovascular-related mortality, hospital admission rates, and emergency department visits for the general public. And now we get to what we're all interested in talking about today, which is what we know about heat and air pollution combined. So when it comes to being exposed to extreme heat and high levels of air pollution at the same time, there's very little research on the individual level health impacts. We know that air pollution and heat can independently impact health in a negative way, but we don't have a great understanding if there are interactions between both of these exposures that could kind of increase their negative impacts on human health. More research is needed to understand the possible interactions between heat and air pollution and their impact on human health. At a population level, there is limited evidence that the general public are at an increased risk for respiratory problems and mortality when heat and air pollution are both high. Again, much more research is needed to understand the possible health effects when both of these are at high levels in the environment. Now, for outdoor workers specifically, there isn't actually a ton of research about the impact of exposures from kind of both of these environmental conditions. With that being said, part of my dissertation work compared traumatic injury rates among construction and agricultural workers to all other workers using 10 years of Oregon's workers' compensation data. I combined land-based temperature monitors and satellite imagery of wildfire smoke plumes for every single zip code in Oregon to examine if there were any interactions between extreme heat and the presence of wildfire smoke. While the study found that there was a significant increase in traumatic injuries to outdoor workers when temperatures were high, I was unfortunately not able to find any significant interactions between high heat and the presence of wildfire smoke. There were a lot of limitations for my study, but many of these limitations make it difficult for any researcher to conduct individual or population level research on the impact of heat and air pollution for outdoor workers. Although it is difficult to conduct research on outdoor workers due to their environment, the seasonal nature of some of their work, and to coordinate data collection during times of high heat or high air pollution, we know a lot about how to protect outdoor workers from heat and air pollution individually. So currently for Federal Occupational Safety and Health Administration, there is no standard federally pertaining to extreme heat or air pollution in outdoor environments. Although there are no federal OSHA rules, agencies at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention are constantly updating and creating documents about the risks of these environmental conditions and ways to limit their impact on worker health. Although I don't have time to go into all the details of the works I'm going to briefly go over, I have QR codes and links directly to the documents for you to read through on your own time when the slides are shared. So firstly, NIOSH published a criteria for recommended standard that is named occupational exposure to heat and hot environment. And this document was last updated in 2016. This criteria document contains many of the controls and personal protective equipment recommendations that we'll go over on the next slide. Now, NIOSH also recently released a draft of a hazard review titled Wildfire Smoke Exposure Among Farm Workers and Other Outdoor Workers. It is currently open for public comment until November 12th. The hope is that this review will close the gap in our knowledge about how exposures to wildfire smoke impacts outdoor workers directly. And then lastly, when it comes to these big documents, in July of this year, OSHA, federal OSHA also published a proposal to issue a new standard titled Heat Injury and Illness Prevention in Outdoor and Indoor Work Settings. Although it doesn't directly address air pollution, this is a positive step forward towards addressing heat and air pollution in outdoor workplaces. When it comes to state level protections, California, Colorado, Minnesota, Oregon, and Washington all have state OSHA standards for heat. California, Oregon, and Washington have state OSHA standards based on outdoor particulate matter, PM2.5 concentrations for air pollution. And basically for the rest of this presentation, I just want to spend some time going through how we can protect our outdoor workers. So, extreme heat events have claimed more lives in the United States over the past 10 years than any other weather-related event. Climate change models predict that climate change will lead to an increase in extreme heat events and associated air pollution episodes. The hazards of heat and air pollution tax human health in distinct ways, and the ways we protect our workers are unique to heat and air pollution. The hierarchy of controls, which is this little graph that you see, it provides a means for determining ways to implement systems or controls from most effective to least effective that protect workers from injuries, illnesses, and fatalities. The problem with protecting outdoor workers is that the heat and air pollution cannot be eliminated, substituted, or have very limited engineering controls that we can put in place. Some of the engineering controls are to provide shade in the workplace and outdoor environments, and also to have access to water misters. That leaves administrative controls such as access to cool water, training on heat-related illnesses and exposures to air pollution and their symptoms, making mandatory rest breaks or changing work hours to less exposed times or times when the heat are less, and developing an acclimatization plan. For personal protection, examples include properly fitting N95 respirators and proper clothing for hot environments. The controls and PPE shown on this list are not a comprehensive list of all the controls available to workers and employers. Many of the state OSHA standards require the employers to take specific actions based on the temperature or air pollution levels. One thing I want to go over really quickly, which is very important when it comes to heat stress and heat-related illnesses, is acclimatization. It is an extremely important aspect of protecting outdoor workers that has been required or recommended in some of the regulations that I went through previously. Nearly 3 out of 4 fatalities from heat-related illnesses happen during the first week of work. To acclimatize workers, we can gradually increase their exposure time in hot environmental conditions over a 7 to 14-day period. New workers will need to become acclimatized, will need more time to be acclimatized than workers who have already had some exposure. For new workers, the schedule should be no more than 20% exposure on day 1 and an increase in no more than 20% on each additional day. For workers who had previous experience with the job, the acclimatization regimen should be no more than 50% of exposure on day 1, 60% on day 2, 80% on day 3, and 100% on day 4. When it comes to personal protective equipment for outdoor workers, there's a lot of research that shows properly fitting N95 respirators can reduce the amount of air particulates workers are exposed to, and proper clothing can reduce the chances of heat-related illnesses. But it is important to remember that while the use of respiratory protection may help to reduce particulate exposure, it may also increase the risk of heat-related illnesses when temperatures are high and there are high levels of smoke or air pollution. This is especially true for outdoor workers who perform physically demanding tasks over a long shift over multiple days. When it comes to protecting outdoor workers, we know a lot about how to reduce the risks of negative health outcomes from exposure to high heat or high levels of air pollution. But as we all know, it has been difficult to get protection measures into federal or state laws. While we have an understanding about the separate impacts of heat and air pollution, there is still a lot more research that needs to be conducted on the impacts of exposure, of concurrent exposure for outdoor workers. With what we know about the health impacts of exposure to air pollution and heat and the protective controls we know can work in certain circumstances for them individually, my question for everyone to think about after the presentation is, how can we get more protections in place for workers, and what protections can protect workers from both of these environmental conditions at the same time? Ooh, don't know how that skipped forward. And the next presenter is going to be Randy Moreland, and I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Dr. Evoy. Hopefully everyone's doing all right. Hi, my name's Randy Westmoreland. I'm with Oregon OSHA. And so basically my goal for you guys today is to just be a little more comfortable with your agency, or how to get a hold of an agency that would be in your jurisdiction. Huh?
Sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if you're sharing your slides yet.
Oh, no, not yet. Sorry.
Okay. Got it.
I'm just doing a little brief intro. I'll go ahead and pull it up though. Okay. While I'm doing that, that was great information. Again, Dr. Evoy, and you've covered some things for me to save me some time. So that's great. So each state that's a state plan, if they have a heat or smoke rule, I can only show you how to get to the Oregon, but the logic may work for you to access that information from the state that you're in, or once the federal rules are promulgated, then you can go that route. So we're going to briefly go over the heat and smoke stuff, but first, just to get you guys more comfortable. So I want to show the path of how to access information with us. I think that we have one of the best sites of any OSHA program that I'm aware of. Washington's is pretty good too. Now, if I just go to a search engine, I just type in Oregon OSHA rules, you're going to see this link, rules and laws. So we're going to take that one. The next page, at the top left of the banner, you'll see A to Z topics. Go ahead and click that. And there'll be, A through Z. I clicked on W for wildfires, and that takes you to every resource that we have on wildfires. So I just wanted to illustrate that for you guys. And this is like a big step in finding what you need to know. But there's everything from publications. You see there's education and training, the final rule, any rule interpretations, or any documents that might help you with compliance, such as a written program. Okay, and here's our rules for smoke and heat illness prevention. So those are Oregon administrative rules. And again, you don't need to memorize those numbers. No one does. I don't think anyone at OSHA does that. So just remember W and H, and that'll get you where you need to go. As far as the wildfire end, I'm going to try and avoid redundancy here. But the tool that we use to assess what the air concentration is of PM 2.5 particulate matter is that the source that we recommend is airnow.gov. Now, there is some others out there that are totally acceptable, but airnow.gov, you would access that website, put in your zip code, and I did it as of, I think, yesterday for this. And so, hey, we're in the green. That's good. This can help you tremendously if you're an employer, because it can help you to figure out, are you over one of those rule thresholds? We'll get into that. Okay, and what they use is the AQI, Air Quality Index. So it is an index, meaning that it's not a specific concentration. I did put the conversions on there, but that's not really that important. The point of that is that the exposure that is considered hazardous is so low that many forms of sampling will actually show below detectable limits. Meaning, if I go out and put a pump on an employee, it can be absolutely almost impossible to show what's happening in the air unless I have like access to advanced laboratory analytical methods, which we don't. So this information comes from our rule, and those tables are right under that. So I pulled it right out of that. And these are the threshold points. So at 101, 251, and at 501, respectively, different parts of the rule are going to be kicking in. But you can see there, basically with wildfire smoke, it's know when to require communication, know when to provide an N95, know when they must wear an N95. These are kind of the big, and when you should have a respiratory protection program. So this is crude, and I just kind of drew it in Microsoft Paint, but I thought it's good to show just how small this would be. This Tylenol, if you look at relative to the AQI of 501, which is painful for a healthy person to be in, by the way. That portion of the Tylenol pill would approximate the concentration of what you're looking at. So even though it looks dense in the air, the concentrations are actually quite low, even for how toxic it is. And respiratory protection, there are some triggering requirements, and respiratory protection is a federal rule predominantly. However, we have a wildfire program. I simply recommend that you just do either a full program or a comfort program, a voluntary use program, just to make sure all bases are covered. And CDC has got this document. I believe you can order them. Maybe Dr. Evoy can clarify on that, but these can be good to guide businesses as far as what are the signs and symptoms. We don't need to go too much more into that. He covered that quite well. And with that, some key requirements on heat stress for us. 80 degrees is our threshold. So the old days of using a widget, which is this fancy machine that takes a whole lot of different forms of radiant heat and spits out a calculation, you don't really have to do that anymore. It's still valuable, but it's more so for those high uses of PPE, such as firefighters, for example, who have to wear full coverage, like envelope protection. There are some exemptions to the heat stress rule if you have a building with AC, things like that. And all that, again, is going to be in the early parts of the rule. The heat stress part requires a written program, so that is a difference. I recommend what you do is to make it simple, make a program that covers heat and smoke, because you're going to find that those two are typically going to be somewhat hand in hand seasonally. So you could have one document that has some policies and procedures for each, and you're more than meeting standards at that point. And then the big key parts of this are emergency medical plan, acclimatization, which is, in my opinion, I would say inferentially speaking from OSHA, that is where the fatalities are happening. We don't see a whole lot of fatalities in heat related in Oregon for workers, but when we do, typically acclimatization or other physiological factors in combination to the heat tend to contribute. So meaning medications, dehydration, people drinking Monster energy drinks instead of water, this kind of thing. So we see that quite frequently. So, and I'm not going to get into the schedule because Dr. Evoy has done that, and hopefully I didn't go over. Please post questions if you have any. And with that, I forget who follows me. I apologize.
Randy, thank you so much. And I'm going to invite Kate to the screen. Kate Sussman, if we've had some difficulty with technology with you, but it looks like we're here. Thank you. I'm sorry for the anxiety.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We're here. I just missed some of my panelists, my fellow panelists' presentation. So I'll go and then I'll turn it over to Pablo.
Please do.
Okay. Hey, everyone. I'm Kate Sussman. I'm an attorney at the Northwest Workers Justice Project. I am in this little phone booth outside of my office because there's a lot of people in the office today. So I hope it's coming across clear. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we train workers on all the things that Dr. Evoy and Randy just talked about, because, you know, the distance between having this strong rule, the strong technical rule, and workers understanding and using those protections is great. And what we do at my organization, NWJP, Northwest Workers Justice Project, is we work with generally folks who are in low-wage jobs. So you would imagine farming, warehouse, manufacturing, some construction jobs. And those are all jobs that have a lot of exposure to heat and sometimes smoke. So we try to, in addition to representing workers in court when bad stuff happens, we also try to do education, training, leadership development for workers. And I'm going to share my screen with some information about like how we train, because I think we all know there are more and less effective ways to train, and it sort of depends on who you're training, what you're training on. And we have found that doing a PowerPoint like this really wouldn't work with a lot of our clients. And what we have found to work more is more interactive presentations. So I'll throw my slides up and they kind of go through the methods that we're using. And again, I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm an attorney. I don't know all the things that the folks who are on the panel with me or the folks who wrote the technical rule know. But I do know a bit about workers' experiences and how workers can learn, can be trained, or how more often than not, in the cases I see, they're not getting that training. They're not equipped from the employer with the things they're supposed to be equipped with, whether that's training or PPE. So I will throw up my slides here, hopefully. I'm really not great at WebEx, but let's see. I might make this bigger. Percent. Okay, I think you can see that now. Now I'll figure out how to go through them. So that's one of my clients there actually, and he's become, he's done a leadership training on how to be a trainer and through our organization. And he was in front of some posters that we're going to look at a little more closely as I go through this. And I'm not going to take that long to go through this. It's just a few slides. But we're talking about using popular education, and this slide just kind of has the contrast with the workers on the right who are in this, you know, apocalyptic landscape with blindfolds, and the workers on the left who are seeing this torch of learning, and that's popular education. I don't know if folks know what that means. I can't really see the chat, and I don't think we have time to kind of do it back and forth, but if we did, I would say, do you know what it is? What do you think popular education is? But I'm just going to give you the answer here. So it decenters the trainer as the expert, and it kind of relies on the expertise of the people in the room who have a ton of lived experience around the hazards and the solutions. It focuses on a collective exchange, not like this, not where I'm just talking at you, but there'd be a lot more interaction. And I'll show you a few slides for how we don't rely on slides really, but we do have some that guide us. Interactive exercises like role plays, other group tools, like going through scenarios, mapping of your workplace, body mapping, matching games, etc. And it's been shown that it's more reflective of how most adults learn. And I just put this little proverb here that was on one of the materials I was looking at. Tell me, I forget. Show me, I remember. Involve me, I understand. And that's kind of the idea. To involve participants. Okay, where was that next slide? There we go. Okay, so for example, we would use a slide like this, and we'd put it up and we'd ask everyone in the room, it says find the dangers, find the risks. What do you see here? And people start to shout things out, and maybe they say something like, that happened to me, or this person should watch out for that. And things that you don't even notice maybe the first time you see it. When you have a group of folks together, they'll really bring a lot of that information out. Another thing we do is mapping the risks in a work site. And this can be super powerful for workers to get together and really think holistically, like, what are the risks in my job? So mapping the work site, risk mapping is another one that we have found really effective. This one, body mapping, has been great to do with workers because you can both, I think this next slide is here. Yeah. So body mapping lets workers kind of look at a generic body drawing like this and say, oh yeah, I think you can faint, or I think it can affect your heart. Or when I felt too hot, this is what I felt. And so we put all that stuff up. Again, instead of relying on a slide, we'll do this interactive drawing based on what the feedback is. What have you experienced? How are you impacted? And that's my coworker, who really should be here instead of me because she is our worker leadership coordinator and does a lot more of these trainings than me. But she's taught me a few things, and I was able to step in because she wasn't available. Quizzes, you maybe do those in your trainings as well, but just making sure folks, after you give information, have a true or false level of knowledge. And if they're, answering incorrectly, you can talk about, go back to the material. And then the last thing that I was going to show is some scenarios. And this would be after we talked about what's in the Oregon heat rule. We'd say you're in a food cart, it's hot, you're getting dizzy. You ask your boss if there's an AC, and your boss says, no, there's nothing we can do. So then we could ask the workers, well, what are your rights? What would you do? And how would you say no to this dangerous job? Because that's another component of training. We have a pretty good right to refuse dangerous work rule in Oregon now, or law in Oregon now. That's another scenario. I won't go through because I feel like I'm out of time. We usually end with, how do you take action? Sorry, this is in Spanish, but almost all our trainings are. So this is just sort of a 1 through 5 steps for how to take action in the most protected way. Because I think y'all know on the call that there's a lot of retaliation when workers speak up in the industries I was talking about and in low wage jobs. This slide has not wanted to load. So I'm just going to put the resources. There were a couple links that I'm going to post in case you want to learn more about popular education. There's some great trainings. Multnomah County has one, and some other online resources. So I'll pause there. Thank you so much, and I'll turn it over to Pablo.
All right, thank you, Kate. Let me share my screen. Oops, let's see, sorry about that. Can you see my screen?
Pablo, we can see your screen, but it needs to be in presenter mode. And then
Yeah.
if you can also turn on your camera,
Oh,
then we can see you.
sorry about that. I thought it was on. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Slideshow. There you go. Is that better?
That is better, but your
Can you-
camera's not on.
Oh, okay. Is it on now, the camera? Sorry about that. I don't know why it's not showing my camera. Okay.
We don't see your picture, which is unfortunate.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
we can move forward without that if you feel like it's not resolvable.
yeah, I don't know what's okay. Anyway, so anyway, my name is Pablo Palmandes, and I work for the Pacific Northwest Agricultural Safety and Health Center. As you can see in the bottom to the right of the screen, and talking about heat and wildfire resources, and besides what the other presenters have shown, I just wanted to give you a few more probably repeating some of the ones that already were shared, but I go quickly and probably talk about something else for the few minutes that I have. The Washington State Department of Labor and Industries here in Washington had these wonderful resources, as you can see here, the Big Heat Smart web page in the wildfire, smoke, and workplace safety and health. If you wanna, anyway, for people to take a look, if they are interested, they are absolutely very good resources about these two, heat and smoke, what we're talking today. Of course, the federal OSHA, that is also a very great resource about heat. They have several resources in this webpage, in this website. I mean, right here, you wanna also take a look. The Western Center for Agricultural Health and Safety, who is one of the NIOSH centers, ag centers, has also very good information about heat and wildfire smoke. Right there are the websites. They're very good. They're popular between workers and actually the ag community. I wanted to share that because of that. And then in Washington, we had this website that is called the Washington State Fire Adapted Communities Learning Network. You know, in Washington, we live with wildfire, so we have to learn about how to manage and live like this. And this website has resources before the fire, during the fire, and after the fire, and they are amazing. So I wanted to share that website. The Pacific Northwest, or PNASH, Agricultural Safety and Health Center, or PNASH, as we call it. We also have resources about heat and wildfire smoke. Specifically, we had what we call the heat tool that was developed here in the center, and it's a heat education and awareness tool. Is in English and Spanish. Most of the resources that I'm presenting, the information is in Spanish and in English. Not all of them, but they are great resources. You want to take a look and check. And recently, the Washington State University AdWeatherNet included in the models that they have in the web page. You can see to the left, they have different models. If you go to the human model for human, they have these two sections about worker heat awareness and air quality index, where people can go and kind of check for, for the heat and for the AQIs. In the case for heat, they can also program the weather station that they want to add. AdWeatherNet has different weather stations in the state collecting weather data. And if somebody lives in a nearby station, they can add it to their own program and look for the forecast for temperatures and also for heat alerts, and kind of program how often they want to receive those alerts about heat and about what temperature. Currently, they are working with these heat alert messages for air quality index. They're not ready yet, but it's coming. And it's also a very good resource. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about very good information about kind of hands-on training for workers. In PNASH, we've done that too with the workers when doing research, and that works absolutely great when training and in education for the workers about heat and smoke. We have in Washington very, very good programs or meetings every year where presenters talk about all these different topics about safety and health for the workers, occupational topics, including heat and smoke. And every year this happens. Ag Safety Day is very popular. The Washington Tree Fruit Association meeting every year is very popular. The annual growers meetings too. Commonly, however, this is information in general that they are getting in all these meetings, but by themselves, they also get information in kind of everyday working basis. Like commonly what we use or what I've seen, because I work directly with workers, is they get information about the smoke in the apps that it was told before here in this webinar. Every day they look at the apps, they have it in their phones. They in the case for temperature, they look commonly in the internet for heat. But also they also get information for the managers and also for AgWeatherNet. They kind of started doing that. Anyway, other resources are TV, newspapers, radio, but they are less common every day. In at the workplace, they get information from trainings from the supervisors, for the managers in the company, but also they ask for professionals. Like for Penage, sometimes they invite us to do a training, and we do that, and we try to do always as a hands-on training. So anyway, some of the questions about what are some successes and failures with respect to protecting those who are working in these conditions. I was kind of thinking about it and kind of think some of my colleagues. Some of that, I would think that some of the successes is the heat rule now that started. It was updated last year. Is year round now. Acclimatization is in the heat rule and is in more detail. And some requirements in the heat rule are not specific. Like, for example, they talk about shade, but they don't specify, they don't give details about it. And Elle and I are currently working on that. And probably in the future, the near future, the heat rule is going to be updated. And of course, information in a language workers can understand sometimes can be challenging. Not only Spanish is talk is by the workers, but they are also indigenous language around. So that's also a problem. About heat protection, works against the protections for water quality. I think about the N95s when it's very smoky out there, but also very hot. Wearing those N95s respirators and masks, they could be uncomfortable to breathe, to wear it. That's something that I see there. And how to address these conflicting protection strategies research. We try to be close with the growers, with the managers, learning what is going on there, what are they doing. The heat rule is new. These are the new procedures in the rule. And what are they doing? It was, for example, for the heat rule in 2023 is when it was established, the update. What are they doing, to comply with the rule? The heat, the smoke this year, the same. What are they doing? So we're kind of learning about what they are doing following the rule, and kind of they can report about issues that they're having following or trying to comply with these rules. And we're learning the process, and then research can be done. So in general, that's what I wanted to share. And with that, I stop.
Thank you, Pablo. And thank you to all of the presenters. You complied with my instructions to keep on schedule. So thank you for that. That gives us some time to have to entertain some questions that people have submitted. So I'm not going to go in any particular order, and if people have questions to submit, please do in the chat, and then I'll try to get to them. So Kate and Pablo really talked about outreach to workers and some specific things that you and your organizations are doing to try to educate workers. And somebody was wondering, and I think Pablo touched on this, how does that information get to employers? Like, what is the strategy to help employers understand what you are educating the workers about? We can go anywhere, and we'll start with Randy.
Sure. So the way that OSHA gets information out, it maybe isn't always perfect, but especially with the heat rule, when a rule gets made with Oregon OSHA, we have a committee which is open to the business community to come in and pose questions or concerns with the rule that's coming out. So I encourage you, if you are a business owner, you might look at our webpage for the rule committees. That's one way. The other way is the big one is through insurance. So like SAFE, for example, is closely tied to Oregon OSHA. And because every business has to have insurance, they're being distributed that information, especially with those topics. And on top of that, we also have enforcement, which maybe I can knock that question out too. So these are emphasis programs, which means that during those seasons, it is a priority for inspectors to go out and do inspections randomly or by complaint. Of course, resources are a concern there. There's more businesses than there are inspectors, right? So we have to prioritize that. But historically, agricultural workers, construction workers, these are the focuses for heat and smoke because of outdoor activity. So
if I could just add
Please.
one thing on that. Thank you. What Randy was mentioning with the advisory spaces when the rules are being made, that's not just for employers. That's also for any advocate and worker advocates or the public. We're always outnumbered as worker advocates because there's a big business lobby and employers generally have more money, I think, to hire folks to represent them or to take time off work and go there. But that's sort of step one. And then once the rules are done, we definitely see employers who are making that proactive effort to like look at the OSHA webpage and talk to their insurer and figure out how to comply. But in my line of work, we usually see people who either don't know that there's a new rule or do know, but don't think it's important to follow. So that's why it's important for workers to step up and make complaints. And then that leads to the cases I do, which are retaliation cases. So it's a complex question. And there's, some employers who are doing a great job and others who just aren't.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else have anything to add on this question? So there's an issue. Okay, when you have the heat exposure, people are feeling that. It's they're feeling it in their bodies and they're feeling it on the job, sort of oppressive heat exposure. But when you have poor air quality exposure, sometimes that's not as apparent. We're not feeling it quite as acutely. If in fact we are a relatively healthy person, the air pollution exposure isn't felt as much. So, and I think Pablo mentioned on one of his slides this idea that having when a heat event and you have the N95 mask and people it's an oppressive feeling because of the heat and you're trying to protect around the smoke or poor air quality, but people aren't wearing them because it's uncomfortable. So I guess the question is, how do you deal with that kind of concern? Because prolonged exposure to poor air quality is dangerous, even though you're not feeling it in quite the acute way.
I can go briefly and what folks are thinking. I think everyone knows OSHA is requiring employers to do things. It's not, you can't go after a worker for not complying with OSHA. Employers can, if you've told your field, the team that's out in the field, and you need to wear this mask or you need to have other protective gear and they don't wear it, that's an employer discipline issue. Those aren't the cases we see. It's much more often that the PPE isn't provided or the training isn't provided or the acclimatization is, skipped completely. So I'd be curious to hear others' thoughts on it. But yeah, workers are sometimes afraid OSHA will come after them And we're always, very clear that this is what employers have to do. And then you have to do what your employer tells you to do.
Yes, I can add to that. It's a very, very good question, Emmy. I mean, we've seen that working directly with workers and in the crop environment and people, around working. I mean, the employers, like I was saying, they follow the regulations. In the case of the N95s, they provide the mask. They tell the workers they have to use it, depending of, their quality. I mean, however, is the workers going to use it? Even though they know they have to use it, it's going to be so uncomfortable that maybe, they're not seeing the supervisor is not watching them. They might take advantage and take it for a little bit, like let's say in an 8-hour day of work, they're not going to use it for even, those 8 hours. They're not. They usually, once in a while take it off, put it on, or sometimes they don't use it at all. They don't use it at all. It's very common that people use other bandanas or surgical masks because they're more comfortable than the N95s. And they think that they are protecting them, but obviously they're not, but they are more comfortable and they prefer to use them. So we've seen that. I mean, I'm thinking that commonly workers, when they're doing a task and something happened that they are concerned about the health, they do a drastically change. Like, for example, if they are very concerned, and we know they are concerned because we've done surveys, they are concerned about the health, about heat and smoke. If they are very, very concerned about the health, they're going to change to a different job, where they are not going to be exposed to heat and smoke. They're going to just change into another job because they are more, the health, they think is more important. So we've seen that. And I mean, here in Washington, workers are needed a lot. And it's a necessity, and these things are going to start to happen, I would think.
Thank you. Thank you all. Here we are at the end of our time. So my gosh, I'm sorry for that. Thank you for all the work that you've done today to prepare and to present. And thank you for this interesting talk. We have another Working Well webinar coming up in December 17th. This QR code will take you to the registration page and to the page where you will find more information about that particular event. I hope you will consider attending. For those who attend this event and wish to receive SHRM credit, you can use this code to access that credit on the SHRM site. And I'll last say thank you very, very much for coming and being with us today for this kickoff event that was very informative and helpful to us. As I've said in the chat, the recording will be ready in about 3 weeks. And if you need access to some of these slides that had a lot of QR codes on them with resources that you can access, you'll need to email me directly and I will send you some slides. The last thing I'll say is in a few moments, you'll get an evaluation from us through the Eventbrite email, and it'll take you 2 minutes. And if you will please complete that evaluation, it really will help inform how we do these programs going forward. Thanks so much for being here, and we hope to see you in December.